And instead, he ran people over and scored a touchdown. And now they need one more win to lock up the 1 seed, give themselves maybe too much time off via 26 days if they want it, between Christmas and their first playoff game, but they'll pick how they want to do it. And obviously, they deserve to be Super Bowl favorites, most notably because the other thing that's happened in those last couple of weeks is they've started forcing turnovers, and this is a team that forced as many turnovers the last 2 weeks as they did it in the first 10 weeks, and you can't beat this team if you tie them in the turnover battle, much less lose it. So your only hope to playing the Chiefs is to beat them in the turnover battle. If you lose it to them, you lose 94% of the time. And if you tie them in it, you lose, 85% of the time. So, yeah, I think, Coach, pretty obviously, they are far and away the best team in football and the team with the least questions of any team in football.
Well, it does make sense why Vegas had the odds the way they had the odds. Nobody's ever three-peated. So right away, at the end of the, once they were able to double down, you're thinking, okay, nobody's ever done this. So odds are they're not going to be the first ones to do it. Just basing off historical things. I'm sure you bet every step of the way, right? With those odds being so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You're just sitting.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Chiefs futures.
Gold mine, which is fantastic. It makes sense that they are where they are. You have the best quarterback who struggled throughout the course of the season, but he's getting so much more in line with what we expect. Their resilience, that's not a negative thing, that's a positive thing. It's hard to teach. I'd say the biggest question mark in my mind is if they can keep that quarterback healthy through the remainder of this run, because he is getting sacked at a higher percentage than he ever has in his career.
But just won the last 2 weeks. So they're trying
hurt for
4 QB
big
hits.
part of that game.
Well, I mean, he was hurt for 2 drives.
I thought it was
it was 2 drives.
Okay, so but that's been the issue, and that's still I would be most concerned about how often he's getting hit and whether or not he can stay healthy.
He was only hit 4 times yesterday as far as QB hits or Saturday. Yeah, they should be the favorites. I mean, there's just no question about it because all the teams obviously have their warts, things, negatives, but the Chiefs are the one team that's shown we can overcome it. So you're right, the offensive line, people might look at, well, the offense doesn't score as much as some of these other teams. Are they explosive enough? Well, we know that Mahomes has been able to overcome that and is the most clutch player we've seen. And so when I look at Detroit, we got questions. Can they overcome that defense? And they're so banged up. Baltimore obviously has been up and down to a degree. Green Bay or Philadelphia. Philly just lost. The quarterback's injured right now. Buffalo,
People
the
question
defense.
the talent of Buffalo.
Yeah, their talent overall. Everybody's got question marks. And Kansas City has some too, but they've shown that they can overcome those.
Okay, so let's go back to those odds. I mean, listen, this is the problem with Nick and why I think people get so annoyed is because when you say that this team is by far and away the best team, that's where people give pushback. Because the Kansas City Chiefs are not by far and away the best team. If you want to say that you think the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team, that's fine. That's a fair opinion. But to act like they are just head and shoulders, comically, hilariously better than every team out there, it's just insanity. And Nick Wright all season, and this is what Nick does perfectly. He does this every single game. Every single game. Throughout this entire season, he has talked about how the Texans are not that good. He's been making fun of C.J. Stroud, that offense. He's been making fun of them throughout the whole season, making fun of Greg Jennings for picking them to win a Super Bowl, saying that they're not even gonna they're fighting just to make it into the playoffs. And then when they beat them, he's like, "See, look what they just did. They just beat the Texans." And he acts like it's like this big, monumentous win. And that's the issue there. If you don't think the Texans are that good, then stick with it. I mean, heck, that's why, I don't watch that game and say, man, the Chiefs really showed that they're the best team. No. The Texans have been inconsistent, wildly inconsistent, bordering on kind of just good to average this season. Not to mention, Tank Dell's knee explodes, unfortunately for him. I mean, CJ Stroud is hysterically crying on the sideline. And that's a young team that like can't overcome that type of stuff. And that's a young quarterback who can't overcome that stuff. I mean, he's just too young and immature. And I don't mean immature in like such a negative way. I just mean like he doesn't have that maturity just yet. He doesn't have that experience. That is something where like a Mahomes and any of these older quarterbacks can really kind of shine. So again, like after this game, it doesn't show me or prove really much of anything to me. The reality, the way how I honestly see it, and this is just like an unpopular answer, but I just don't think like any of these teams should be favored over anyone. I really, really don't. I think they should all essentially just have the same Super Bowl odds. It's honestly how I see it. I put them in a basket. I just put them in a basket, and it's just what's going to happen on Sunday. When Josh Allen throws that deep ball, does Shakir actually catch it, or does it go between his hands? The Philadelphia Eagles. Is A.J. Brown and Devontae involved, and they're actually catching the ball and having Saquon rip off runs? Or is it a kind of one or the other type game? The Detroit Lions, does their defense stand up? Yes or no? The Kansas City Chiefs, they keep winning close games. Will they be able to win a close game against the Lions, against the Bills, against the Ravens, against the Eagles? I don't know. These are better teams than those teams that they played, those close games. I understand they beat the Ravens, but again, that was week 1. That was week 1. I don't really care what happened in week 1. But I get why the Chiefs would be favored and even should be favored. And it's not so much because of what they did in years past. Not because they won last year or the year before. It's because of the experience of Andy Reid, Mahomes, and Spags. And to a degree, Kelsey, but I'm just, at this point, I don't know how much that necessarily matters. It's a little bit harder to gauge. But definitely those 3, Reid, Spags, and Mahomes. It's like if everything else is equal in terms of, let's say it was just like a weird point system where each team had 5 pros and 5 negatives. And so now we got everyone just super equal. You would then say, okay, well, I'm going to defer to Andy, Mahomes, and Spags because we know they come prepared. And that whole turnover win-loss record is exactly what I said about the Chiefs. I said this like weeks ago, where with the Chiefs, the way they win is they just kind of allow the other team to make their mistakes. And they say, okay, you make a mistake, we're going to have you beat. If you don't make a mistake, well then, that changes things significantly. But we're going to believe, we're going to bet that you're going to break first. You're going to make that mistake. We are not. And that's where the Chiefs have shined really more than anything these last couple of years. Not in 22, but definitely 23 and 24. And 24 more than ever, quite frankly. And so, yeah, it's okay to question whether or not that mentality, that approach would work against a significantly more high-powered offense like the Lions, like the Eagles, like the Ravens are playing now, like the Vikings. So, yeah, this season has continued to be very interesting because in so many ways we have so many different teams right now that play in such different ways, but I really think in terms of what makes each individual team great versus what makes each individual team kind of like have some sort of deficit, it really, really does balance it out. Which is why, like again, last year going into the playoffs, the Ravens did feel incredibly dominant. The 49ers did feel incredibly dominant. In 22, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Chiefs, they all felt incredibly dominant. Like just like a level of intensity that was like, who's stopping this team? Who is stopping this offense? Who is breaking through this defense? And this year, we've seen moments of that, with all of these teams, minus the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs necessarily have shown their dominance. I know they obviously have the best record, but they haven't shown that dominance because they haven't imposed their will on a team like we've seen the Lions do many times, or the Bills, the Ravens, the Vikings. The Eagles probably less so as well. I would say that the Eagles are probably closer to the Chiefs in that regard of showing their dominance and imposing their will. I think they've had individual players that have, like Saquon Barkley and stuff, but I think that just hits a little bit differently. Kind of in the same way where it's kind of been Derrick Henry and Lamar, and kind of just like Josh Allen, again, more individually. And again, we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce just go on a tear where it's like, oh my God, this is absolutely unstoppable. That's why all these games have fell close, for that very reason why. That's why they have all these one-score wins coming down to the wire, which is why people feel, hey, the Kansas City Chiefs aren't as good. So yeah, I mean, this is just going to be a fascinating path throughout the playoffs, honestly. Because when you do see teams like the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Vikings, when you see those teams play, what you do is it's really kind of like a graph. And you see their highs and their lows and their highs and their lows, highs and their lows. And we talk about this like inside stats, like the area under the curve, area above the curve, whatever it may be. And so you can have these kind of ups and downs, or you can have something a lot more steady or just a lot lower, up and down, up and down. So you're just tighter across that line. That is who the Chiefs have been. Now, what's interesting is you would have to map it out. If I was more, if I was more hands-on, I'd have a graph and show you all right now. But, the truth is that you'd have to take a look and see who has more area above the curve where you're going to see that high-level football, that winning football. Sometimes the peaks are so high that they can withstand some of the lows. Sometimes they're not. So like that's why it's going to be so fascinating. It would be so fascinating to see a team like the Bills now play the Chiefs, a team like the Eagles play the Chiefs, the Lions play the Chiefs, because again, the way their path to greatness is fundamentally different than what the Kansas City Chiefs do. These are fundamentally different teams with different offenses and different defenses and different strengths and weaknesses, which is just which is what makes it kind of exciting to see. In a lot of ways, you could see the similarities in terms of maybe like the Lions and the Eagles, the Bills and the Ravens to a degree. And again, nothing's ever equal, but it's just you can kind of see some of the comparisons, right? The Ravens kind of lack on defense. The Bills kind of lack on defense. The Ravens have a dynamic, exciting, all-time quarterback. The Bills have a dynamic, exciting, all-time quarterback. It's just kind of different. The Eagles and the Lions both have, depending on who you ask, great quarterbacks or good quarterbacks, right? Like it depends on what you think of those quarterbacks, but both those quarterbacks do not get the same level of attention as Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar. People say, well, this roster is amazing, or the coaching staff is amazing, and that's what's propelling these two teams, the Lions and the Eagles. And then the Vikings kind of have a little bit of mix of everything, quite frankly, because people don't really know what the heck to do with Sam Darnold. They love Kevin O'Connell. They love Jefferson. If anything, it's probably seen as like they're the baby version of, say, like the Eagles and the Lions, even though I don't really think they should be considered that, because I think they're also really great. The only difference is that the other team's quarterbacks have a longer track record of playing at a high level than Sam Darnold, which I've already unpacked a million times, and so that's not what I'm going to do in this video. So that's what really makes this honestly exciting for me, because I just don't think there's any true reliable way to know. I don't know why the Lions would be favored that much, maybe say over the Bills, and maybe it's because the Bills would have to go through the Chiefs and the Lions only have to go through the Eagles. Like, it's just like the way how some of these odds are come about, and that's why, like, I just don't care about the odds, quite frankly. I really don't. I mean, it means so little to me. It really does. But these clearly are top teams in the NFL. You could probably add another team or two in there. And I just think it's going to just so much come down to some of these little things, and that's what I said actually last year going into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, and it's actually exactly what happened. You know, going into that Super Bowl last year, I said, you know, are we going to see a bizarre muffed punt, a fumble here, a bad interception? Like what is it? You know, where are some of these things that are just so unpredictable going to come down? And that's exactly what happened in that Super Bowl. You did have a random Christian McCaffrey fumble. You did have the muffed punt against the 49ers. You did have a random Greenlaw injury. Now he's out for the game. I mean, like, you had like bizarre events that are truly unpredictable. Truly unpredictable. A missed field goal for the Bills. Like, all this random stuff. Very, very random stuff. And when you have random stuff that can hurt you, again, that's where the Chiefs can thrive. Because they have the level of consistency where they're not going to balance that out to make things back to being equal. I mean, it's like the Chiefs in a lot of ways are kind of counting cards in a casino. They're just waiting for the deck to get hot. They put the chips all in. Boom. 21. Let's go. And so it's going to be really cool to see how this all continues to unfold. They have the game against the Steelers. A part of me, and this is just me coming from an entertainment standpoint, it's like, I want to see the Vikings beat the Packers, the Chiefs lose to the Steelers, so then that way we can get that final game of the season still interesting. I mean, it's a bummer when like half the games of the final season are like meaningless and don't. That's not fun. Like, I'm here for entertainment. Again, I understand if you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, no, we want to win, you know, lock it up. I get that, obviously. But I'm kind of like, you know, the Lions versus the Vikings. Final game of the season, winner gets the number 1 seed, loser drops down to the 5 seed. Those are real stakes. Real stakes. Like, that's exciting, man. That's really exciting. That's an extra playoff game. The Broncos and the Chiefs, where if the Broncos upset the Chiefs, then they don't get the first, you know, they don't get the first seed. Like, that's exciting. Like, that's what I'm here for. Seriously, like, that's what I'm all about. I want to be entertained, man. That's what I cheer for. I always cheer for entertainment. Always cheer for entertainment. And it's such a bummer. Last year we had so many games that meant nothing. Like, absolutely nothing at the end of the season. And it's like, you know, it's a bummer. So, from an entertainment standpoint, it would be cool to see, because then also if the Chiefs win, then the Bills aren't even really going to be playing hard those next 2 games. Because I think even mathematically, like, I think they're pretty much locked in at the 2 seed. It would probably be like, I think they would maybe have to drop both games to maybe make them potentially not get the 2 seed, but they would be pretty locked in. So again, it has this trickle down effect. And if the Vikings lose, then I think that's also wrapped up. So then, like, the Vikings lines don't matter. The Eagles don't matter. Probably then the Commanders don't matter, because again, like, I think even at this point now, the Eagles, they have 2 more games against the Cowboys and the Giants, I think it is. Like, those games won't matter. Like, we're gonna have like multiple weeks now and many games of games not mattering. So I hope the football gods have our back, give us some interesting matchups so we can kind of get some extra games, because that's just all I want, man. I want that entertainment. So please bring it on. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Super Bowl odds right now as they lie? Do you think the Chiefs deserve to be favored? Do you think they should be tied with the Lions? Where do you guys all see it? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.